I'm really close with my best friend and her family. I mean, we have known each other since we were 2, and we lived on the same street even till this day. Since we have known each other for so long, and we have a lot of stories to share, but today I thought to share this one. When we were 8, she invited me to go camping at a local campground for the weekend, and I desperately wanted to leave my house, so I accepted. When we first got there at around 10 p.m., we thought it would be fun to scare some people by hiding in the bushes and jumping out. It was fun, and we got a few people, and some of them just chuckled and thought we were cute and kept walking. And then we jumped out at this one man, and his reaction startled 8-year-old me because when we jumped out, he didn't get scared. He just looked at us and smiled this really gross, pervy old man smile. Since it was a couple of years ago, and it was dark and I couldn't really see any distinct features other than he seemed to be a white male in his late 40s, around 6 foot, medium build, and had a strong smell of cigarettes and whiskey, my friend, we'll call her Faith, and I were both kind of weirded out because he didn't say anything for a couple of seconds until he said, "You know, you really shouldn't scare people like that. It's quite naughty." That scared me just because the whole time he was still smiling and staring at us all over. I was frozen, and Faith just grabbed my arm and said sorry to the man, and we ran off. The next day was normal, but when it was sunset, we wanted to run around the campsite and be kids. When we were running around, we heard someone yell, "Yoo-hoo," from up the hill, and so we look up and see no one, so I, without thinking back, yelled, "Yoo-hoo." And then we see someone walk towards us on the hill. You guessed it. It was the man from the night before. I wasn't scared this time. I was in such a good mood, so I let the guy come towards us, and he yells down to us, "Where are your parents?" Which Faith replies, "Oh, they're at the campsite." When he hears that, the grin comes back, and he asks, "Well, it's getting dark, so why don't I walk you back?" We started to get creeped out and said, "Nah, it's okay, it's pretty far away." Which he responds with, "Oh, well, I have 2 kids, and they have bikes you can borrow up at my campsite. Why don't you come with me and I'll show you?" I was scared, and all I wanted to do was go back, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings, being as naive as I was, so I accepted, and Faith and I started to walk up behind the man with him, as he looked back every few seconds with that grin to make sure we were still following. After about 30 seconds, we got to his campsite, and we looked around and saw no trace of kids, let alone bikes. This was a huge red flag. He says to wait outside of his trailer while he gets something. I look at Faith and tell her that we have to hide since there's no way we can run back to our parents fast enough, so we book it to the bushes. After about a minute, I see him swing open the trailer door and come outside with not bikes, but duct tape. This sight chilled me to the bone. Even though I was young, my mom and dad have told me about all the scary things that have happened to kids when they wander away. I would always watch murder shows with my dad and had seen an episode when someone was tied up with duct tape. I started to freak out when I see his face change from that disgusting grin to pure anger. He looks around, even right past me and Faith crouched down in a bush. After no luck, he charges back inside, and I grab Faith and we both run all the way back. We were too scared to tell our parents, so we just went straight to bed. We went home the next day and didn't talk about it until a couple of days ago when it popped in my head. Nothing came from this experience other than years of nightmares. So when I was in my first year in high school, I had a teacher whose name was Dr. Johansson. He used to teach my class civics. He was a special fellow, not like other teachers. In the school I attended, teachers were often not close to students in a social way. They were simply there to teach, and that only. Dr. Johansson liked to keep contact with the students, so he decided it would be a lot easier to do so if he had a Facebook account. He started adding people on Facebook from our school, and eventually started talking to them. He often posted weird stuff on his wall, and commented weird things. For example, one time he posted the song Straight Outta Compton by NWA and wrote, "All they say is the N-word, 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 N-word. I don't get it." Of course, some students commented and asked him why he had used the N-word so freely. He removed the post and apologized, blamed it on being drunk. This was nothing. He started talking to students, mostly boys, and he managed to find some students' numbers and started sending them texts randomly. He would send stuff like, "Do you need help with homework? You could come over to my place and I could help you out over a glass of wine." And this he would say to teens that were younger than 18 years old, so according to the law, they are not even allowed to drink. And he pretty much offered alcohol to minors. Remember, he's a civics teacher. He should know this stuff by heart. It's also morals, for God's sakes. Anyway, he never sent me a text, but he sent some weird texts to my friends. Later on, he decided to talk to me. This was a couple of weeks after he had started contacting students like this. He would speak to me on Facebook chat. He would ask me things like, "How do you get girls? Do you have a big dick? Do you often get to sleep with girls after your shows?" Because I'm an artist, and I found these messages highly disturbing. They became worse, like, "You must be such a stallion in bed. You were probably really good," and "Enter the rabbit hole with me. Come on, I'll take care of you." I had no clue what the fuck that meant. And that wasn't even everything. After a while, things started to get out of control. He started asking me to go out with him to the clubs, and I wasn't even of age at the time, and he said he could get me into the clubs with no ID and all would be well. Now, of course, I said no. He then apparently got pissed at me and decided not to speak to me much after that, since I had turned him down a few times. He started talking to one of my nearest friends instead. It ended up with Dr. Johansson sending my friend a picture of his ass with the caption, "Please, take me from behind and take me hard." Mind you, my friend was 17 at the time, whilst Dr. Johnson was around his mid-30s. He was taken to court and Dr. Johansson got his little sentence. He was to do community service for a little while, and then he was to pay my friend a fine. That was it. Dr. Johansson still works at a school today and is totally accepted. I find that very wrong, people. Very wrong. A man like that should not be able to get into that line of work again. Things could have gotten much, much worse.
I'm 18 now, but when I was in 7th grade, I was at my friend's house staying the night. He lived in a pretty rough side of town, but we were too ignorant to any danger. Around midnight, we decided to walk to a gas station about 2 miles from his house, just to have something to do. We always like to freak each other out on these little late-night walks, so I told him we should walk through the forest on the way to the gas station. With no hesitation, he made a sharp turn and walked directly into the trees. I followed and we began to try and make each other fearful as we would ask, "Did you hear that?" Obviously nothing was there until one time we weren't talking and heard a loud snap, like someone stepping on a branch. Instantly we stopped and looked at each other, then began to bust out laughing because how scared we got. We continued walking and eventually got out of the trees to the dimly lit street. I live in a small town, so there was only a small hotel and a bar in front of us. We continued walking when all of a sudden my friend nudged me, asked me if I had noticed the person behind us. Once again, thinking he was trying to scare me, I told him to shut up. But when he looked at me, I could tell he wasn't kidding. I glanced over my shoulder and he wasn't kidding. There was a person about 50 feet behind us. It was too dark and they were too far away to see any features, but the silhouette was definitely there. I whispered to my friend that we should go to that hotel and to not look back again. We eventually stepped into the light coming from the sign of the hotel and checked. Sure as shit, it was still behind us. We looked at each other and made the decision that we should get to that gas station and fast. We continued walking and I glanced over my shoulder. The person had walked into the hotel and we were now alone. I called my friend a pussy and we laughed as we were reaching the gas station. Inside we bought some drinks, laughed off the situation, and decided we should keep walking to our other friend's house, about a mile away. We began walking when I felt like someone was following us. I turned around and that's when I saw it. The same person had somehow caught up, was only 10 feet behind us, this time fully lit up. A tall, lanky figure draped in brown clothes loomed over us. My eyes crept up, and that's when I realized there was no face. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. Just a faceless person. We both dropped our drinks and bolted to the nearest public place. Thankfully, we saw some cop cars and ran to them. We stopped and looked back. The person had now crossed the street, but its head was fixed on us. The body sideways, but the head still looking at us. The creature walked straight into the trees like we had done so earlier. And as fast as it started, it was over.